y'all, it is Crafty Hope here, and I'm working in this Dylusions Journal. You can see I've just got a couple pages left, and I am trying to finish it out, but we'll see. This page I absolutely love the results of, but it was a surefire struggle to get there. So I'm sorry this video is so long, but we'll get there. I've cut out as much of the, hold on, I'm trying to close the door so maybe the dog isn't so loud. I tried to cut out some of the unnecessary things and speed up some of the things that, like all of this collaging I'm going to do, kind of sped it up a bit so that it doesn't seem to take forever to do it, because in the end this collage really just adds some texture to the background. Some of the words on some of that paper shows through, but really it's I don't know, it was a lot of work to really cover it all up. But that's kind of what's great about collage for me, is it gets, I go into a lot of things without much of an idea. And so I take all these fabulous, yummy bits of paper that I just love, and I stick them down. And I'm just using a glue stick. This is an Uhu glue stick. It's what works for me. You use what works for you, but get some papers down. If you've got a blank page and you don't know where to start with those little scraps of things you've got hanging around. I mean, it could be magazine papers or stuff from an old book. Some of what I use is even like worksheets that for some reason are still hanging around from when I was a kid. So yeah, just put some stuff down there to get some texture. Now, one of those pieces there, I don't know if you can see it, is a piece of, it's that really bright one at the top left. It's got some cheesecloth on it, and that ends up adding so much in the end. Yeah, you'll see when we get to the end. But let's see what else. So what I put down to start with was a lot of non-opaque, no, I'm sorry, opaque, non-transparent pieces of paper, things that'll stay true to themselves. And so what I'm adding now, I'm using a fluid matte gel medium and a paintbrush, and I am putting down more transparent pieces of paper. I think there was some tissue paper and tea bags and maybe even some deli paper, and I used the matte gel, the fluid matte gel, because it helps enhance that transparency of it. And then I'm gonna cover all of this up with some gesso. Really, all the gesso is doing is helping all of this feel a little more cohesive, because this was absolutely all over the place. So many colors going on, so many shades, and you add a little gesso down, it makes it all work like it belongs together. You see that right page, it's already like, yes. But what was really kind of standing out was that bit of color up there on that top left. I love that bit there, but you see I'm going to add a little bit more gesso. And I'm using, y'all, I don't even know what that thing is. It feels like a credit card, but it's huge. It was something I think my mom and stepdad got in the mail and they were going to throw away. And I was like, no, I'll take it. Or actually, no, that may have come with something else. But I've got some other that are big ones like that were like things that came in the mail that I was like, no, I'm going to keep that. I can scrape things with that. Alright, so I'm going to put down a couple colors of paint. The first one I'm putting down, I think, is that Americana Bluegrass green that I like so much. And for some reason, I cannot find a link on Amazon to that particular color. But it is, it's DecoArt's Americana Bluegrass green. And it's gorgeous. And I think I start to put down, that's some Lucas Indian yellow, but I changed my mind about that, and I don't remember why. But what I ended up coming in with is another Americana, and it's saffron yellow, which is really close to that But I think what I wanted was to use the craft paints because I thought that they would blend together. Now, the thing I really wanted to do here was to really water down these paints so that they had a watercolory effect and blended to one another. And just, you know, again, I didn't want to cover up a lot of that background, even though that's exactly what I did. And then this last one, oh, that's one of my favorites. I think it's called Coral Blush. Let me see. Yeah, it's a corally color. And if you'll notice, these are kind of almost primary. No, they're not primary colors. But I put the colors I thought would blend well to one another up against each other. So that, like, I knew that coral and the yellow would blend, and then the yellow and the green would blend. And kind of make other colors in between them instead of mud. So that's what I did, was I put those together, and I realized that coral there was prominent. There was much more of it than anything else. I put down a little bit more of that yellow and just moved it out, and I'm going to dry this because it's all so wet. All right, and then I decided I needed some darkening up. I wanted to frame this up a little bit, so I'm using Master's Touch Payne's Gray to get some darker colors in there. I like the Payne's Gray because it's dark without being black. I've kind of searched for a color like this for a long time and didn't know that Payne's Gray existed. I have some, I think it's some Americana called Midnight Blue that I thought was going to have this kind of color to it, and it didn't. So, yeah, I'm so glad I finally discovered Payne's Gray several years back, thanks to other artists who have highly recommended it. So you see, I'm putting that down, and really I am framing this up, and I had no intention except that I didn't want the white to stay so prominent on the outside of those colors. And I really like how some of the things that are in there, you can see the texture. I put down a round disc there in the bottom right, and it really shows up with the texture. And I got tired of using the paintbrush. You see, I'm just using my fingers to blend that Payne's Gray in. And then I'm going to put a couple splashes there in the middle of the page. I did clean everything up there before I come in and dry it. Like I said, I've cut out quite a bit of things y'all didn't need to see. Alright, so now I'm going to play to add some more texture here. So I've got about all the color down that I'm going to add on this page, and that's plenty of color. I used all kinds, and the texture was kind of in the collage, but now I'm going to use some crackle paste. This is the DecoArt's Media Crackle Paste. It has gotten really hard to find. If I can find it on Amazon, I'll put a link to it, but I haven't been able to find it on there for a while. So it's a great crackle paste. I do recommend, if you use it, and with any crackle paste really, let it air dry. The cracks tend to turn out a lot better than if you tried to speed up the process with a heat gun. The crackle just isn't as good. And also, most crackle paste, the thicker you put it on, the bigger the cracks. So if it's on fairly thin, you're going to get some really tiny cracks. So there, I left that to air dry and have come back and have decided to accent some of that with just some instant coffee that I got from the dollar store. So I had a tiny little bit of water, maybe less than a fourth a cup, in that jar, and I dumped in a bunch of those coffee crystals. And I'm just using the paintbrush to paint this, and I'm hoping that will help make my crackles pop. And it does, for the most part. The crackles definitely come through when you look close at them, but you can see that's kind of where I'm painting over are the white areas. I didn't want the white to be so prominent with this. And then I'm going to take some more of those coffee crystals in those areas I've painted and sprinkle them right onto that wet paint, right onto the water that's on the page. So, and I'm going to just keep painting at this. In a second, I'm going to start drying it, and then I'm going to stop drying it to add more glumpy bits, and you'll see here. That's what I'm going to do. You'll see it. That's why it's a video. If I just told you, it would be silly to have a video. Sorry, y'all. I'm feeling a little goofy today. So yeah, I stopped drying it for a bit to paint on a little bit more and then completely dried it. And from there, I decided it needs some sparkle. Like I said, I really struggled with this page trying to find some direction, and I was just throwing everything at it. And there's more to come. So much more to come. We're only about halfway through this, so stick with me. So that's just some Liquitex acrylic ink in gold. I'll admit I watered it down a bit more than I really would have liked. I should have left it, either used less water or left it without as much water in it. But because I'm going to dry this real quick and then come back with more gold because I just didn't get enough gold on here. So yeah, because I really wanted that sparkle to be in there. And it's not really like a big detail in this page. It's just I wanted plenty of sparkle. So that this time around, I mean, you can still see the sparkle that's on there, but yeah, I needed more. I need more of that gleam. All right, so while I let that dry and everything, I picked out what I was going to use as my focal, which is this Tim Holtz, what are they called? Family photos? What are they called? I've got some right here. Found relatives, I think is what they're called. That's what they're called. So it's these nice, kind of big, what do you call it, playing card size pictures. And I wanted to distress the edges, and I started with the distressor tool, and that was giving me fits. So I just kind of bent and crumpled that a little bit, which is great because when you do that, you expose a little bit of white on there, just like you would with a regular photo. And then I decided, really, y'all, I'm going to town with this thing. I decided to use just an old pair of scissors to distress those edges, and then I'm coming in and tearing a couple little spots on there, on that picture. So that is Distress ink in tea dye, and I've got one of those makeup blenders, and I'm gonna go around the edges of this because while the white is nice on there, and I did keep the white that shows up on there, it also does a great job of soaking up some of the ink. So I'm going to use that Distress ink to give a little bit of age around this photo. And I really like that tool. I found it at the dollar store. They're getting a little tougher to find at the dollar store, but you can still find some of those contour brushes. My niece, who's very much into makeup, saw that and was like, "Oh my gosh, those are horrible. Don't use those." And I was like, "Oh, I'm not using them for makeup." So, and she's like, "Oh, okay, then that's fine. Craft with it." So, yeah, that's what I do. So I did break out the sanding block and distress a little bit more, and that exposed a little bit more white on that photo thing. And then I've got a piece of old tablecloth there that I am going to attach basically to that picture. So I'm starting with some gel medium, and I'm going to go ahead and glue my picture to that piece of cloth so that it's all stuck together. But then I'm going to come in with, I don't know if you can see that, I've already pulled out some embroidery floss, and I believe I've already also threaded my needle so that this is a little bit more, goes a little bit quicker for y'all. So, yeah, my needle's threaded, everything's ready to go, and I've sped this part up because watching me stitch is boring. So I'm just going to add some lines basically, y'all. I've got this pretty green embroidery floss that I'm going to put on the fabric and on, I don't know, kind of I wanted the fabric and the picture to feel like they were one thing. So I'm going to stitch in a minute a couple stitches up that left side between the fabric and the picture to give them more of a cohesive feel. But also I'm using that green there to bring it. So if you want to kind of make everything fit in, I feel like bringing in a color that's already on the page really helps. So I'm using that green because it feels like it was that original bluegrass green that I put down. So this is, and I wish I had been a little more sloppy with this little accent here, but it works. It's fine. I'm trying to trying to let go of some of the perfectionism I was taught doing counted cross stitch as a kid. So it's hard for me to kind of be messy with some of these things, and I'm trying to let it go. And that's what this art is supposed to be about, is kind of finding that freedom in your own expression. See there, I could have left that bunched up and kind of been awesome, but I didn't. No, I'm going to make these pretty little straight stitches. But they do add some really great texture here on that focal page. So I turned that over. I did a little knot in the back of it. Wasn't super concerned with it because I know I'm gluing all of this down again using my matte gel medium, which is great because these are kind of heavier materials. It's a fabric, and those cards are super heavy. And as you see, I'm going to put this down, and I'm going to end up sticking a bunch more of that gel medium on the back of it because it's going to need it to stick. So this is going to be a little fiddly in here getting that all down. I'm going to go ahead and promise you there's not much more left to this. So thank y'all for hanging in there. If y'all do have any questions about any of these materials I'm using, any of the choices I made in this, or anything about me or my art, let me know below. And if you do like these, make sure you give me a thumbs up and subscribe so you can see what else I've got going on. I would really appreciate that. I'm trying to get my viewership up and all of that. So share this if you like it as well. Okay, so all that are some phrases I typed up that I'll put a PDF below. I've got a Google Drive saved of these phrases that if you want to use them in your artwork, you absolutely are welcome to. And that one says, be a rainbow in the storm. Y'all, that's one of my favorite phrases because, who was it? I don't know, that maybe like almost a Maya Angelou quote. She's got a quote that's similar to that. But anything about remembering that rainbows only come when there's rain and all of that really speak to me. And with this having all that color in it, and then it's got, that kind of dark storminess around the edges. I thought it was kind of perfect. So I did darken up that really white paper with a little bit of that distress ink, and I'm going to trim this down a little bit more, and then finally at some point stick that down. Oh, actually, I'm going to go around it a little bit more in here in a second with, I decided I didn't like the very sharp points on it. Nothing on this page is very angular, I guess. So I'm going to tear a little bit on there and then use some black StazOn ink to add a little bit more distressing to this before I finally stick it down. And then in the last touch, I'm going to use my distress ink there and that little brush to add a little bit of color on that fabric so it's not so stark white. So, because I just didn't want this, I didn't like this stark white for this page. So, alright guys, I think that's about everything. Like I said, if there's something I didn't cover or something you have questions about, let me know. I really appreciate you coming in and watching and sticking with me through this really long video. I've got some pictures of this final product here at the end. And y'all keep on crafting on. Bye.